Hello, sunshine. I'm Alexi, Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, well, the CCL final. It is upon us. UCL semifinals, Coed soccer, dual nationals, MLS documentary, Leeds, the Batman, Upfronts, Nashville, Angel City, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light. You know him, you love him. David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you on this Tuesday, May 3rd? Yes, we are coming to you 24 hours late. Apologies. I beg for your forgiveness. It could not have been helped. How you doing, Mosse?
Doing well. Good to have you back in Los Angeles. It was very odd doing an MLS show without you this weekend.
Well, I like that. I like that you missed me and that it was odd. So yes, it could not have been helped. As I said, I flew across the country and back within, 36 hours on a special stealth mission that will become, I can't talk about it, but it will become obvious in the coming weeks. I will tell you that we do things to promote, obviously, what we're doing on Fox, and this was to promote the whole year and what we're doing, and not even just the year, actually going into next year with the Women's World Cup and all the different soccer that we are going to have. There's these things called the upfronts. Mosse, you know what the upfronts are?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, it's basically this industry get together where you unveil and roll out what it could be your fall lineup, or it could be your next year, or basically everyone telling everybody else how good they are and what they are going to do. And we at Fox certainly are very proud of all the things that we are going to do. And so this was part of that presentation that we are going to make at Fox, in which we introduce and announce some very, very cool things going forward when it comes to what we are going to do with our soccer properties. We talk about all of them, but obviously I was involved in the soccer portion of it. So we'll be able to talk about that in a little bit. But like I said, couldn't have been helped. I had to go back and forth across the country, and therefore we are coming to you 24 hours late. And we do appreciate, and it was amazing waking up this morning and even last night when, kind of on Twitter, people were seeing that I was traveling, that people were asking about it. And it goes back to what we've talked about, Mosse, where for people that are in the podcast world, you recognize very, very early on that ritual and routine, both in terms of the content that you are producing and to your listeners, your watchers, your customers, whatever you want to call them out there, is really, really important. And so if there's any advice I have to people out there, it's be consistent to the extent that you can. I know things come up and there's other things that happen, and we roll with the changes when they come. But I don't like doing it because I know that there are people, even after the crazy couple of years, which kind of took us out of our routine, there are still lots of people out there that look at this as a steady diet and look for it to be there on Tuesday morning in their feed and all that. We try our damnedest to provide that, but we couldn't do that this week. So we do appreciate you bearing with us when we do that. We are also, because we're recording on Tuesday and we have limited opportunity when it comes to the studio space that we use on a more regular basis, we're coming to you in a remote aspect, and you can probably see and hear a little bit of the difference, but I don't think there's that much of a degradation when it comes to the quality that we're putting out. And either way, we're gonna plow on. Mosse, did you watch anything interesting over the last week, my friend?
Yeah, lots. I've already ripped through the final 7 episodes of Ozark.
Okay.
I am caught up on Better Call Saul, Atlanta, and Winning Time. And I went to see a movie. The Luis Aguilar recommended Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And verdict?
It's weird, but good weird. I enjoyed it. I thought it came together at the end nicely.
Was your reaction better or worse than when you first saw, what was it?
Parasite.
Parasite. Yeah, Parasite.
Not as good as Parasite.
Not as good as
This is an Oscar best film winner, but that clearly was.
Well, you're an old guy, so I mean, it's probably not directed at you anyway. Okay, I will check it out though. Either way, all right. Let's see. What do I have? First, I think it's 8 episodes or something like that, called The Stranger, which is really, really good. I really, really enjoyed that about this, crazy story of, I guess it would be revenge and redemption and all sorts of different things. I know I'm not explaining it very, very well. I don't want to give it away, but it's very, very good. The Adam Project. I don't know if you've heard of this movie here. I thought it was really, really good with Ryan Reynolds, and he's a time traveler, if you will, and comes back to encounter both his, I guess, 8-year-old self and his father, who had since been deceased, and hijinks ensue. And it was really, really entertaining. I thought it was really good and much. There was much more layers than I thought there was going to be for a Ryan Reynolds pick, if you will. And then, my friend, have you seen? We don't call it Batman, The Batman.
I have not.
Okay, where do I start on this? Okay, so there is yet another Batman movie called The Batman. There was an effort when a lot of these superhero movies started to come out, that the cartoon aspect of it that was so prevalent and so important and so successful over not just the last couple of decades, but way, way before. I mean, historically, when they made these cartoons into movies, there was still that, for lack of a better word, fun and larger than life type of aesthetic and everything. Anyway, it doesn't have any of that. There was an effort even before The Batman here to make it much more dark and grittier. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with being dark and gritty. But I also think that there comes a point when there is no sense of self. There is no wry, crack a smile, and certainly nothing funny or fun about these movies. And I thought that The Batman was so far over on the side of being dark that it just became incredibly monotonous and boring and dark, not in an interesting way at all. And so I know it's a fine balance. I don't blame the actors. I think it was just written this way, and I think that they were absolutely directed to play it this way. And the guy from I don't know, Twilight or whatever those movies was fine in a very monotone, like I said, dark way, which is how I'm assuming he chose to play it that way, and I'm assuming they were okay with having him play it that way. I just think there's does anybody remember Laughter, Mosse? I don't know. Robert Pattinson. There we go. Thank you, Louise, for reminding me there of who that was. And like I said, I don't blame young Robert in terms of his portrayal of the Batman in this movie. It was, as I said, probably what they expected him to do. So I thought it was uninteresting, boring, and ultimately forgettable. So that's so you should definitely see it, Moss.
I have a bonus.
Oh, really? Go.
I also saw a Netflix documentary on Marilyn Monroe's death.
My wife and I were watching this too.
Yeah. And it inspired me to do something I've long wanted to do. And it's like 5 minutes away from my apartment. So I don't know why it took me all these years to finally do this, which is to visit the cemetery where she's buried in Westwood. It's this famous cemetery where all these Hollywood celebrities are buried. Everybody from Rodney Dangerfield to Kirk Douglas, Dean Martin, and like 20 other people on that level. So it's pretty crazy. It got me on a Marilyn Monroe kick for a couple of days there.
Yeah, it's a really interesting documentary. And you know, the footage that they have is kind of out there, but the audio that they have that this guy had was with her. There's plenty of with her where she, talks very, very honestly and openly about her career and herself. And then, these recorded conversations with people around her that make it really, really interesting. So where do you fall? Again, we're not giving it away because we know that she died. I mean, the question would be, and the conspiracy theorists out there and all this kind of stuff, where do you fall when it comes to the death of Marilyn Monroe? Was it just a horrible, unfortunate overdose, or was there something more sinister behind it?
Well, I think it was clearly motivated in part by some big argument she had with Robert Kennedy that same day. And it's unclear if it was an accidental overdose or a suicide. I don't think the death itself, there was any foul play, but the Kennedys were very eager to get there as quickly as possible and eliminate any evidence tying Marilyn Monroe to the two of them. So, there is a sinister side to it for sure.
Well, my friend, there's nothing sinister about the State of the Union podcast. All right. And should we light this candle, my friend?
Let's do it.
All right. Where do you want to start here? Let's head over to MLS, shall we?
Yep. Let's start with the reigning champs, NYCFC. It took a while for them to break through, but when they did, the floodgates opened. They beat San Jose 3-0. That's 3 straight wins, 14 goals scored in those games. They've shot up the Eastern Conference standings. I suspect by the end of this month, they might be in first place in the East because this team is absolutely loaded. One of the goals was scored by this young Brazilian, Gabriel Pereira, they recently signed, who's looking very promising. And they got Maxi Morales back from injury. So all signs pointing forward for NYCFC.
Now, it was against San Jose. So, with that caveat, but yes, all things absolutely pointing in the right direction. Let's go through some of these scores here. We're going to talk much more about CONCACAF Champions League in a little bit here. Austin went into Houston for that battle over there in Texas and pulled out a win. Austin just keeps trucking along. Congratulations to them and Josh Wolf, who has this team this year, absolutely in my mind, looking like a playoff team, and with Driussi, who I think is early days. We talk about MVPs and all that kind of stuff. This is a very, very good Austin team right now, and they continue to prove it. And that result on the road in Houston was just another feather in the cap that this is an improved team and one that is worth your time. And Diego Fagundes continues to do well. Let's see. Cincinnati went into Toronto and ruined Bob Bradley's day up there in Toronto. So Cincinnati, these perennial bottom dwellers, are showing signs of life and certainly heading in the right direction over there with Pat Noonan and Chris Albright at the helm. Anything on those two, or want me to keep going here?
Well, I'll just say Toronto's goal in that game came via Jesus Jimenez, a Spanish forward who has 7 goals this season. So they didn't get the result they wanted here, but he's been a terrific signing for Bob Bradley so far.
Yeah, and look, I know that this is a work in progress for Bob Bradley, but it's the same thing with Manchester United, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But you have these big clubs that have promised. And it's a little apples and oranges in MLS, but certainly when it comes to Toronto, the days of glory are long in the past. But the amount that teams like Toronto and Atlanta, which we can talk about in a little bit, have fallen, I get it that it's a work in progress, but it's got to progress very, very quickly when you are some of these teams that promise so much and have promised so much. Let's see. RSL beaten the LA Galaxy. So RSL is for real over there with Pablo Mastroianni, and they held on for dear life and got the 1-0 win in Salt Lake. Montreal just keeps on cruising up there. 2-1 win over Atlanta, and Atlanta is struggling right now. They thought that this was going to be them coming out of the doldrums and a return to greatness. Obviously, they lost Joseph Martinez with the injury. They lost Brad Guzan, and it's just not going well for Atlanta. But on the other side, Montreal, they're not only winning, but they're fun in the way that they are playing.
Yeah, 1 point in the last 4 games for Atlanta. Can we circle back to RSL, LA Galaxy?
Sure.
A couple of things there. You talk all the time about how important it is in MLS to nail your DP signings. Well, Kevin Cabral has 0 goals and 0 assists in 500 minutes on the field this season for the Galaxy. And Douglas Costa has 1 goal and 0 assists in 460 minutes. And that 1 goal was a free kick against Seattle that took a wicked deflection, somewhat fortunate. I was skeptical of the Costa signing. I said it on this podcast. I incurred the wrath of certain members of the Galaxy organization for saying that. It's early days here, but those were the guys brought in to take some of the scoring load off Chicharito's shoulders. And so far, no good, huh?
So far, no good. But they're still at 16 points. They're in third place in the Western Conference. So from a standings perspective, they're fine and they're well within the playoffs, but they're leaving something on the table. And that's the problem, especially for a team like the Galaxy.
You mentioned Austin being a playoff team. I think we all agree on that. There's some debate about just how good they are, and they have an interesting match coming up this weekend. They are home to the Galaxy. That's the FS1 game on Sunday. We're excited about that. So that'll be an interesting test for Austin. On the RSL front, they've completed the signing of Jefferson Savarino from Brazilian club Atlético Mineiro. And by the way, Jefferson Savarino previously played for RSL and then in early 2020 left to go to Atlético Mineiro. So now he comes back. Very good signing there. Underrated player. He was good for RSL the first go around, and he was very good for Atlético Mineiro. It's funny. Atlético Mineiro in early 2020, they brought in this Venezuelan coach, Dudamel, and he lasted all of 10 games and was sacked. But the one good thing to come out of his brief tenure is he signed Savarino, and Savarino proved to be a very good player there for a couple of years. Last year, helped Atletico win the Brazilian League and the Brazil Cup. And so it's interesting. Ironically enough, Atletico, they're unloading him because they need the money and they need the international spot for another former MLS player. They're about to sign Christian Pavon from Boca Juniors. But so Savarino headed back to MLS. Let me say this on the topic of guys leaving MLS, going to Brazil, and then potentially going back to MLS. This is for the Matt Doyles of the world to keep in the back of their mind. Edward Atuesta is off to a terrible start at Palmeiras. The fans are all over him. Now, the Palmeiras manager, Abel Ferreira, rates him, and he's preaching patience there. I don't think they would acquire him and then unload him a few months later, particularly since Palmeiras have some depth issues in the midfield. They just lost Sky Jailson to a season-ending injury. But if the next couple of months things don't improve, come the summer, an MLS team needs a midfielder, it's worth at least a call. That's all I'm going to say. I'll put that out there for now.
Well, I just you have to be careful though, because as the great Eddie Money told us, you want to go back, but and do it all over, but you can't go back, and so you really got to be careful of assuming that returning to the site of your greatest accomplishment and glory will automatically turn on that faucet again. But I do think, to your point, it is worth it. We've seen that Chris Mueller, who played for Orlando, is possibly coming back to Chicago. So there is that return and that cycle that's going on when it comes to Major League Soccer. But it doesn't always work like that, my friend. Should we go on to some other scores here?
Well, we just brought up Atuesta, so we might as well do LAFC. That was the FS1 game. They've been the best team in the league so far. They take it 2-0, both goals in the second half from substitutes, Hollingshead and Cifuentes. That's 8 goals from substitutes so far this season. They've had 12 different goal scorers. So we've talked about it. It's been a team effort. It hasn't been about the brilliance of any one player. Although, speaking of their most brilliant player, it does appear that Carlos Vela is going to sign a contract extension with LAFC. So you've got that news. You've got them winning. You've got them atop the supporter shield race. So it's all good right now for LAFC, right?
It is. And for the Loons, they continue to kind of be Jekyll and Hyde. And you think that they've come out of whatever funk they are in, and you think that everything's going to be okay, and then they kind of go and, I don't know, do Loons lay eggs? But they lay an egg against LAFC, and there's no shame in that. Like you said, LAFC, I agree, is the best team in the league, and they just continue on. Columbus back in winning ways, and they gave a little respite to Caleb Porter, who I do think was under pressure and certainly will continue to be, but they thumped DC United. Speaking of back to life, back to reality, DC United. Columbus 3, DC United 0, and another team back to winning ways. And 2-0 over Miami. New England Revolution, not only back to winning ways, but back to their goalkeeper in our first opportunity to see Matt Turner. And we're not going to get a lot of opportunities because we know in the summer he's off to Arsenal, but it just shows you how important a goalkeeper can be. Whether he or she is making those saves, just the presence of somebody that you trust, that can infect a team in the most positive way. And look, you need look no further, like I said, than New England, or when it comes to a team like Philadelphia. We'll talk more about them later. But in a year where goalkeeping has been shall we say, suspect in the league. It's nice to see Matt Turner come back from a New England Revolution perspective and from a U.S. soccer perspective. What are you laughing about there, Mosse?
No, you were whipping through. Do you have a plane to catch in a couple hours?
No, I just want to make sure that, I get to everybody, because every week, inevitably, somebody screams and yells and whines about, oh, you didn't mention this, you didn't mention this. So I'm just going to go through the games here. And I think
fair enough.
A better way to do it.
So New England beats Inter Miami 2-0. That halts Inter Miami's momentum on the field, but they did get some good news off the field. They obtained approval for this lease agreement for the land where they want to build this Miami Freedom Park Stadium. So that's a big step there. They're not out of the woods yet. There's still some red tape that needs to be worked through. But, in this Inter Miami, NYCFC, New England sort of trio of franchises thirsting for new stadiums, Inter Miami have sort of taken a big step here.
Absolutely a big step. And congratulations, at least so far, so good. Also, whether it's David Beckham or the Mosse brothers or anybody else down there, this should have come as no surprise that there were going to be obstacles and hurdles, and that there was going to be politics involved when trying to secure a location, and that it was going to get down and dirty. And we saw the incredible theater and drama. And my good friend Michelle Kaufman, who reports on that team down there, was live tweeting during the actual vote. And there were, 5 representatives and politicians, and they needed a 4-1 type of vote. And there was all of this wrangling and back and forth trading in order to get what they wanted, in order to secure that. I mean, it was politics. It was exactly what it was, but you knew that going in. And so you should, I know that there was some speeches that were given about how ridiculous this was. No, it's just the way that it is. It may be ridiculous, but like I said, it should come to no surprise. But so far, so good when it comes to the stadium project, and the sooner the better. Although this is years and years away, they are one step closer to having that as a reality, so that they are actually Inter Miami as opposed to Inter Miami. And when I say Miami, I mean Fort Lauderdale in their temporary stadium.
Speaking of new stadiums, Nashville opened up one this weekend. You sort of alluded to that game already, but we should circle back to it. Nashville, Philadelphia played to a 1-1 draw. Leal with a late equalizer for Nashville from the penalty spot. What did you think of this stadium?
So we haven't been there. We're going there in a few weeks. So I actually get to see what it looks like. Keep in mind that this is stadium, MLS soccer specific stadium. I guess we would be on 3.0 now, where this is a 30,000 seat stadium. And we all know that for the most part, all of the MLS stadiums that have been built, which have made a world of difference in terms of the business and in terms of the perception of that business, have hovered around the 20,000 mark. And Nashville looked at their history, and they looked at the demographics and the soccer that they had there, and they said, no, we're going to do something bigger. And I think they've created, at least from the outside, a wonderful stadium. It looked fun. It looked loud. It looked hot. And the fewer games in the sun, in the Nashville sun down there, I think probably the better. But it sounded great, and the team was unlucky, let's be honest, not to come away with the win, if not for some incredible goalkeeping from Andre Blake and the soccer gods smiling upon them when it came to crossbars and stuff like that. Nashville could have had a bunch of different goals in there. I think that they are going to create something for themselves that is very, very positive. So I'm excited that to go back to your point about now the soccer specific stadium wars, if you will, with a Z. In Nashville, laid down their marker and said, here we are, and look at us. And everybody is looking at them. And so now when you're talking about New England and you're talking about NYCFC, they're rightfully going to come in for some criticism and some attention. As I've said time and time again, when it comes to New England, or any team for that matter, if they are playing in a situation that they feel is sustainable and is profitable and is something in which they are not hurt, they are going to continue to do so. But at a point where it becomes detrimental to the business, then they are going to act, because then they are going to be forced to spend that money. And it is money, and it's time, and it's resource in order to do that. They're not just going to do it out of the goodness of their heart. And so whether it's, like I said, New England up there playing in their own stadium in Gillette, And I'm not saying that the Crafts wouldn't want their own soccer specific stadium, but until there is that force to make them do something quicker than they would normally want to do it, we're just going to continue talking about it. The same is true, let's be honest, up in Seattle, for example. And as I said, in NYCFC, it's not that they don't have the money there. I mean, it's a lot of politics and it's a lot of history and it's location. And it's not a good look for NYCFC. It's a great look for Nashville. And it's a great look ultimately for Major League Soccer, which continues to put out these stadiums. And stadiums matter. As I said last week, stadiums matter. The box that you put your product in can shape the perception of your product. I mean, hell, there are brands out there that base their entire credibility and the perception of their product on the way they package that product. I'm looking at you, Tiffany's. All right. So yeah, it matters. Where should we go to now, Mosse?
One more point on Nashville. Walker Zimmerman, they recently signed him to a new DP contract. How happy were you to see an American player like Walker be given a DP deal?
Well, that he's American, it's not irrelevant. I mean, it makes me proud that something like that happened, but I don't want charity. I want great American players being recognized. And I think oftentimes they are overlooked and not given the value that they actually have. In this case, I think Nashville looked at Walker Zimmerman and said, where are we going to go out on the market and find somebody like him in the world market I'm talking about? We have him right now. He is money. Doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes. So we are going to give him the money. So I think that was great with Leal and for Walker Zimmerman, two hugely influential players on the field. And I would think off the field too. And to see him and, both of them or anybody that's good there and has been such a huge part of their success. And that more importantly, I believe will continue to be part of their success because you don't just reward them for what they've done in the past.
Did you catch our pregame show for LAFC Minnesota?
No, I'm not watching that. I wasn't involved.
We had Doug McIntyre on, who reported on both the Vela contract and the Walker Zimmerman story. And Doug absolutely crushed it. Very good appearance. I suspect he'll be back on our shows regularly. I like to think it was his successful appearances on the State of the Union podcast that prompted our boss, Zach Kenworthy, to give him this TV gig. So we are a launching pad for stars, my friend.
I don't think we are doing our job if we are not launching stars, my friend. Yes, absolutely. Well, he's a must, I guess, read and now a must see when it comes to his content that he continues to generate for us.
One more example, Carly Lloyd was on this podcast and days later popped up in the Fox pregame show for a U.S. women's game, which that had to be us, right? Who knew who Carly Lloyd was before she came on this podcast?
Mosse, let's just be honest. We are the king and queen makers of soccer when it comes out there. All we need is to bless you and good things will happen. So nobody cries and whines here. Orlando finally get a win over there against Charlotte. Let's see. Chicago loses at home to the Red Bulls, which have been a wonderful and pleasant surprise this year. And they continue on, especially when it comes to their ability to go on the road. SKC 2-2. So the struggles for Peter Vermes and SKC continue. They tie 2-2 to Dallas at home. Colorado, cruises on with a 2-0 victory over there in the new age of Gyasi Zardes as their designated player. They get a 2-0 win over Portland. And there, I think I have mentioned everybody. So whine at your own peril. Anything else, Mosse?
Well, a couple of things in the games you mentioned. Jesus Ferreira with another goal. There seems to be this consensus building that if the World Cup started tomorrow, he would be your starting center forward. Are you? Who's
consensing that? Where is that coming from? Really?
Internet commenters.
Oh, okay. Got it. We've talked about Jesus and that he is even in the conversation is concerning, not because he's not a good player or can't be a good player, but I think the way in which he plays that position, for me, is much more of a backup type of plan. And so starting out in the first game in the World Cup, with a quote unquote false nine, I think that's dangerous. I think that is sprung upon at different moments, either within later in games or later in the tournament. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that is going to happen. But also, to be fair, I do have confidence in him as a player. But I think that's a whole lot more about the fact that it's just such a low bar when it comes to that number 9 position and scorers. But he's scoring goals. He's doing well. He was rewarded, another American player who was rewarded in terms of the designation and the money for what he is doing. And he's entertaining people. He's selling tickets. And I absolutely think that regardless if it goes to 26 players or not, he will be on that plane come November going to Qatar with the U.S. men's national team. And I'm happy that is happening. What else, Mosse?
No, just last nugget for MLS. You mentioned the Red Bulls won away to Chicago. That's 5 straight away wins to start the season for the Red Bulls. That's absolutely remarkable. They've done all their damage away from home. That
is hard to do. That is well done. Well done. So when all is said and done, as we mentioned, LAFC sitting atop of the Western Conference there, and right below them with Austin. And then when it comes to the Eastern Conference, Philadelphia, Jim Curtin's men just keep on cranking out points. They're at first, and the aforementioned Red Bulls at second, 1 point behind them. So it's a topsy-turvy type of year in terms of the perennial favorites, if you will. We've mentioned NYCFC and Atlanta and New England and the struggles that they have had this year. And on the other side, the LA teams are back on top, and then wonderful surprises when it comes to a team like Austin. All right. Anything else, Mosse, MLS wise?
No. So one team that did not play this weekend is the Seattle Sounders. Kudos to MLS for doing that, recognizing the significance of what's at stake here. They gave them the weekend off so they could prepare for the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League final. First leg in Mexico ended 2-2, a wild game. We can revisit that. But the title will be decided at Lumen Field. The latest I've seen is over 65,000 tickets sold. So it looks like they are going to break the record for biggest attendance in a CCL final, which is something they wanted to do. And the away goals rule is not in effect. So if there's a winner in this game, they're the champs. If there's a draw by any result, it goes to extra time and then potentially penalties. The Seattle Sounders with a golden opportunity to become the first MLS team ever to win this competition. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that nothing has changed in terms of my assessment or the assessment of a lot of people out there that this is Seattle's to lose, and it would be a unmitigated disaster and failure for them to lose it, especially after that first leg where I thought that they were the better team, even though the scoreline didn't show it until the end. And that this is how crazy this year of CCL is that the scenario and the moments and the things that we have so long associated with hurting MLS teams and, being CONCACAF and all that kind of stuff were brought to bear in a completely upside down backwards day type of way. The Seattle at the last dying death of the game, losing 2-1 away to Pumas, and Christian Roldan is able to pull a penalty out after consultation with the VAR, and they end up getting a 2-2 result, which is obviously a bigger deal and a big deal relative to what we all thought was at least going to be a 2-1 loss. So this was great. This was a great result. Now they go home where they are so dangerous against, as we've said time and time again, a mediocre Pumas team, a team that played over the weekend, a team that does not play on turf. You're in front of 60, close to 70,000 people who all recognize that they are going there to see a moment of Seattle Sounders history and a moment of Major League Soccer's history. And let's be honest, a moment of American soccer history. So it's all there for the taking for Seattle. And I have no problem saying that I think that they are not only going to take it, but they are going to take it easily. And I'm not jinxing it by saying that. There will be those that watch the game that hate watch, and that's okay, because this is Seattle. This is the rich getting richer. You think that they were, as I said, insufferable before. Wait until they win CONCACAF Champions League, but because they invented being insufferable. But if I put that aside, if this were to come to fruition, and I think it will, yeah, there will be immense excitement and praise, and rightfully so, of what Seattle has done, not just this year, but over the years, and the consistency that they have. And I will be proud, in a sense, that a Major League Soccer team is the new champions of CONCACAF and will represent our region over all of the other teams and all of the other talent that we have out there. Seattle Sounders are going to represent our region in the Club World Cup. Now they gotta get it done, because they're a better team from top to bottom. And even in the 2-2 game away, we saw that. So tune in, because, like I said, tune in. Even if you don't want Seattle to win, tune in, because you might at least get to see a little bit of American soccer history.
You mentioned Pumas played over the weekend. It was a 2-0 win over Pachuca, which got them in the repechaje in Liga MX. Both goals courtesy of Juan Dineno, who also scored twice in the first leg against Seattle. So he's on fire. He's the danger man. Seattle will have to worry about it at Lumen Field. Alan Mosse, their excellent right back, who's getting a lot of buzz for the Mexican national team. He came off injured in that first leg, looked to be very serious, but turns out it's not that bad, to the point where he might even play in the second leg. So keep an eye on that. Do you want to go through some of the officiating in that first leg? I know it's kind of old news, but
that's all right. Just
my take on it. Okay. The Pumas penalty I thought was soft. I didn't love it, but it's not an indefensible call. What bothered me about that sequence is, you'd think the penalty, which is a judgment call, the referee might want to run over to the monitor and decide for himself. That one, he trusted the guys upstairs. But then the goalkeeper off the line on a penalty, he ran over to the monitor for, which is a black and white thing that the guys upstairs could have told him about in 5 seconds. So that whole sequence was a bit odd, and it was our first indication that referee was going to have a chaotic evening.
I didn't think that it was a penalty, that first one. I also, what ultimately was the second goal, what ended up being the penalty for the second goal for Seattle. And well done to Christian Roldan for delaying and just planting the seed that there was a possibility. Because in real time, just kind of said, whatever, it's going to finish out. And I don't think anybody honestly would have been angry on either side had that not been called.
But I thought that's one that, when you look at the replay, the penalty was clear. You didn't think it was that clear?
No. When you look at the replay, I get it. It's clear, but I don't think anybody would have looked at it with retrospect saying, oh, we really missed and messed up that one.
It's funny. The issue I had was with Seattle's first penalty. To me, if you go over to the monitor and look at that Arriaga push, then you have to call it. Now, in a pre-VAR world, it would be easy to dismiss that and say, hey, stuff happens in the box. The referee can't catch everything. It wasn't that egregious. But in a world where we have VAR, where they buzz you, they say, hey, come look at this. I know it wasn't like the most aggressive push in the world, but he did put both hands on his back. He shoved him a little bit, enough to prevent the Pumas defender from being able to jump and head that corner away. So that was a bit puzzling to me, that penalty didn't get taken away. And, it's interesting. We brought in Dr. Joe Macknick, who straight up said this penalty is going to get wiped away. And Stu Holden, with his MLS blinders on, said, no, they should keep the penalty. And they did. And so Stu Holden was all proud of himself. He was rewarded for his bias, in my opinion. I think Dr. Joe had it right, but the referee went along with Stu Holden's interpretation of it. So that penalty I had a bit of an issue with.
Now, I'm an old guy. And so I did not play in the time of VAR, but I always try to imagine what I would have done. And I mean, look, I had limited talents, but the ones that I did have, I think I was adaptable and I was flexible. And I think I would have reacted and adjusted to the modern game and adjusted to VAR. And it still amazes me that so many players haven't. There have been players absolutely that have adjusted. I mean, even the way that they defend, the arms behind the back, the reticence relative to the past, to challenge and to go to ground in the box. And certainly when it comes to set pieces, I think it is fundamentally changed the way that players mark, especially in man-to-man type of marking and situations. I mean, the stuff that was done in the past, if you know now that the trip or the hold or the illegal pick or anything like that is potentially going to be seen, then I think you approach the situation very, very differently. But it still amazes me how many players have not adjusted. And either they refuse to adjust or the light has not gone on, that the game is so different now and that you are really playing roulette each and every time that you do that. And that all it takes is either something to be seen that's very, very clear, or something that's not very clear but is seen because of the eye of the sky. So I think that as we continue on with these generations now that grow up playing within a VAR world, the way that you defend is going to continue to evolve and to change. I'm just surprised it hasn't happened quicker.
Now, all along, we've kind of felt that this might be easier than we ever imagined. There was a possibility of all 4 quarterfinalists being MLS teams and the Dragon being slayed right then and there. And then going into this final, we thought, well, Seattle's clearly the better team. They might just go to Mexico and get a result there and put this thing to bed. And so now here we are back home. Are you still of the belief that Seattle is going to go out and win this 3-0 and leave nothing to chance? Or is the lesson here that this was always going to be, when it finally happened, it was always going to be dramatic, and we're going to be sitting there in the 75th minute, 0-0, 1-1 and sweating. And it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's a sense that this should happen easier than we ever imagined it would. But at the same time, it's sort of, you're sort of realizing that maybe not, that the reality is this is destined to be some sort of dramatic bounce of the ball here or there.
I think it's going to be anticlimactic in terms of the drama and the theater. And maybe in a certain way, Seattle will want that. However, I do think that there are going to be those that in a moment when they should be congratulating and praising are going to look at it and say, yeah, but it wasn't insert whatever Liga MX team in the upper echelon you want to put in. And that there will be those that even in this moment of glory, and I know I'm preempting it right now, will not give it its due because of the opponent. Now, it's not Seattle's fault that this is what has happened, but I think that Seattle is going to win and win convincingly, and it's going to be an easy night and then a celebration. The interesting thing going forward is how much value we within the game and Major League Soccer and the press and the players and ownership, how much value is put on it. Because we know that if Seattle were to win, and I think that they will, we're going to get up Thursday morning after the game, and it's not as if the world will have changed and all of these different opportunities will have opened up to Major League Soccer. As we said time and time again, it's simply a checking of a box, but a necessary one in order to go. I mean, we are in stasis right now, and almost as if, even if you don't want Seattle to win, you might just want that box to be checked so that we can go forward. So I think that will be the reaction to this. But I think there should be a moment of pause and, yes, a moment of praise for what Seattle has done, not just for Seattle, but also for the league. And then when it comes to Seattle, again, we will go back and I think rightfully assess, let's say, the last decade of Seattle and the body of work that this organization has put together, and really look at them. While we talk about the Galaxy and others, but really look at them in the context of being, arguably the greatest Major League Soccer team in history. Now, that as I said, it's arguable, which is a good thing. But what's not able to be argued is how consistently good this team has been in a league that is very, very difficult to do that. So good luck to them.
And the second leg on Wednesday is live on FS1. With a half-hour pregame leading up to it. So we're excited about that. Tune in.
Yes, so we'll be on air at 6:30 our time, 9:30 Eastern time, 6:30 Pacific. We'll be giving you a lead up there in the studio, and then we'll kick off the game at 7 o'clock, which would be Pacific time, and 10 o'clock, which would be Eastern time. But yeah, it's a piece of American soccer history possibly that's going to be on our screens. Or do you want to finish up here with some NWSL stuff?
Correct. Before heading off out of town for the upfronts on Friday night, I know you took in this game, Angel City, their home debut in the NWSL. They beat the North Carolina Courage 2-1. You were there at Bank of California Stadium.
I did. I took my daughter. I have a 16-year-old daughter. Yes, pray for me, and pray for her. Yeah. So we went and we had a blast. It was wonderful. It was a sold out night. It was a night of celebration. It's also, I've been to so many of these and I never take them for granted. I always sit there and I try to take it in. And a lot of them I've been in the capacity of working, and sometimes you can miss out on just taking a moment, taking a breath. And so I was just a fan. I was having some beers and screaming and yelling like everybody else, but I did take a moment to look at what was happening, from a soccer perspective, not even just a women's soccer perspective, but from a soccer perspective, again, this league into their 10th year, this league that continues to work and struggle like all American professional soccer leagues on and off the field struggle and push that boulder up the hill, to have this moment for a brand new team, an expansion team playing in this gorgeous stadium, selling out the stadium. And then as is so often the case, you're all hyped up and everybody is amped up and ready to go. And then the actual on-field product doesn't live up to the hype, which is not the case here. The home team came out. Immediately we saw history in terms of the first goals being scored. And keep in mind that this was an Angel City playing against what everybody, including Stu, I was there with Stu Holden. We were looking up the odds, for the betting odds of what you could bet on. And overwhelming favorites were the visiting North Carolina Courage. And it was very, very obvious that this was a Angel City team that was not as good as their opposition. But they came out, they got a couple of goals. Everybody's going crazy. It was a wonderful thing. And then they just held on for dear life in the second half, and they got the win, and they sent everybody home happy. I will say, having been to plenty of LAFC games, it was a little bit of a different type of dynamic, not because it was men's and women's. It was simply because I think that it's just kind of new to a lot of the fan base for that particular team. Now, there's a lot of crossover with LAFC, but everybody was doing it for the first time, if you will, in an Angel City perspective. And so I think some of that was, a little bit of the rhythm was off. And I think it's only going to get better and bigger as they continue on, as they figure out organically what that experience and what that environment is going to be like game in and game out. But, for the first time, like I said, the home team won. Everybody went home happy. It was a crazy, wonderful crowd. It was fun to be there. I saw so many people that I knew. A lot of people coming up again, Mosse, and asking to send their best wishes to you and talking to me about the State of the Union podcast. So you're resonating there and everywhere else, my friend.
Oh, very nice.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a trip around Europe. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back, Mosse. Let's go right over to jolly old England there and see what's going on in the Premier League, shall we?
Yeah, so we have title race, top four race, and relegation battle, and they're intersecting a bit with some of these fixtures down the stretch here. So let's do the title race first. This past weekend, Liverpool and City both held serve. Liverpool won 1-0 away to Newcastle. City won 4-0 away to Leeds. So City are 1 point in front with 4 to play. And they also closed the gap on the goal difference. They're plus 63, Liverpool plus 64. So that could come into play. That's important as well.
Yep.
Also, some news with these two clubs. Jurgen Klopp has signed a contract extension until 2026, which Liverpool fans were thrilled about. And fans of all other clubs were disappointed because they thought he was going to leave sooner than that. And Pep is reportedly working on a new deal with City until 2025. And it got me thinking. I was talking to our boss, Zach Kenworthy, big Liverpool fan recently, about the possibility of him going to Paris to take in the Champions League final if Liverpool advance. And he made a comment to me. He said, I don't know how many more chances I'm going to have because I don't know how much longer Klopp is going to be there for. And so Liverpool fans sort of intuitively understand that this is all about Klopp, everything that's going on at that club. City, it's not quite to the same degree. They had built themselves up into a powerhouse and were winning Premier League titles before Pep got there. But certainly them being at this level they're at now, I think, is down to Pep. And you see how much United have struggled in the 9 years since Sir Alex Ferguson left. It's interesting how certain clubs, there is that one towering managerial figure who we attribute the success to, while there are other clubs like Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and even Chelsea, who knows what's going to become of that club now, but in the 20 years so far under Abramovich, where, no disrespect, they've had very good managers who've done very good work, but there's more of an interchangeable quality to it. It's the club, more so than the manager. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
We don't see iconic coaches in the way that we did in the past. And part of it is just the reality of the movements and the greater movement of coaches right now. So you mentioned Sir Alex, which I think everybody, especially when it comes to the EPL, is kind of held, to that type of standard. And so what I'm talking about is coaches whose legacy is undeniable, who will have statues built for them. And, I think it's not as much of a no-brainer for Klopp to continue on as people may think it is. I mean, I look, it's just soccer, so it's all relative. This is easy life for relative to 99.99% of the world out there. However, I think it takes a tremendous amount of time. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, both physical and mental, to stay on top in the way that he has. And so I think that there was I have to believe that there was a thinking of, is this something I want to commit to? Because if he does it, he's all in to continue to build that legacy, and he doesn't want to half-ass it. And if he didn't feel that from a Liverpool perspective, there was ability to do that. So where does he rate in terms of the legacy? How are we going to be looking 25 years from now, looking back on Klopp's time? And like I said, it's going to continue on here relative to the way that we look at Sir Alex.
I'm enamored of Klopp. I know the trophy count isn't as high as some other managers, which detractors use to as a knock against him. But I'm sorry, when you look at the clubs he's managed, Mainz for 7 years, Dortmund for 7 years, and now Liverpool for 7 years. So he hasn't managed a super club per se. Now, Liverpool are a great club with a great history, we know, but the way we use that term super club, I think it's to connote something different than what Liverpool are, at least in my opinion. So, to me, it's incredible what he's done, what he inherited there at Liverpool and what he's turned them into. And we'll see how many trophies he ends up winning there when it's all said and done. But I suspect he's going to come out of this Liverpool tenure recognized as certainly one of the great managers of his generation. I think one of the greatest managers of all time. I put him on that level.
Speaking of managers, with the results and the way that they went, our American brother over there, Jesse Marsh.
So let's go.
Got to be feeling it, right?
Let's go from title race to relegation battle.
Okay.
Yeah, we thought Leeds were out of the woods a couple weeks ago, but they've now been dragged back into the scrum. They lose to City, and then Burnley come from behind to beat Watford, which was not good for Leeds. And then even worse news for Leeds was the fact that Everton beat Chelsea 1-0 on Sunday on a goal by Richarlison, who then proceeded to pick up a flare and throw it into the stand. So he might get himself suspended for that. So keep an eye on that. But huge result for Everton. Goodison was rocking, and Jordan Pickford had an absolute blinder. That one sequence where Mason Mount took a shot that hit both posts, and then Azpilicueta followed up, and Pickford came out of nowhere to save it, was remarkable. So Burnley are now ahead of Leeds on goal difference. Everton just 2 points behind, but they've played one fewer game. So, yeah, there's no way around it. Leeds, Jesse Marsh, they are right in that scrum. It's going to go down to the wire for them.
How many games left now? 4?
So Leeds have 4 games left. Everton have 5.
Okay. Sheesh. Yeah, it's going to be close. It's going to be real close.
On Chelsea side of things, I know they're just kind of playing out the string in the Premier League here, although they might get leapfrogged by Arsenal for third place when it's all said and done. But Christian Pulisic started on the bench again, came on, didn't have much of an impact. And then his father sent a somewhat enigmatic tweet afterwards talking about how it's such a shame. Pulisic loves London, loves this club. The tone of it was, man, it sucks that he's going to have to leave in the summer because the situation is not sustainable. I mean, am I reading too much into that, or what did you make of that tweet?
Yeah. So I saw it, as did everybody. And, it comes at a moment, not at a moment, I mean, a period where there is and has been, I think, fairly a lot of talk about what is going to happen. And I've said time and time again, I just don't think that Christian Pulisic is Thomas Tuchel's cup of tea. And that's neither, it's not good or bad. I mean, it's bad for Christian Pulisic, but it's not good or bad in terms of Thomas Tuchel, because I think this is a work in progress for him. And I think he's looking forward, doesn't look at Christian Pulisic as a must-have type of player going forward. When it comes to the tweet from Christian Pulisic's dad, and I said this on Twitter, I look at it simply as a father who was out there supporting and protecting and defending his son from what at least he perceives as, a unfair, either public or maybe private, that he is privy to type of criticism in the midst of, as we mentioned, a negative and a challenging atmosphere and situation that Christian Pulisic, his son, finds himself in. And so I looked at it much more as, this is love. Now that it got deleted, who knows? Maybe he just thought better of it and how it was going to be interpreted. But these are done. Yes, there is an emotion sometimes to tweeting, but these are also done at times strategically. And who knows if he or a friend of his or his wife or Christian Pulisic himself told him, hey, you're not helping the situation by doing this. But I don't think that this changes the attitude or the behavior or the mindset of Thomas Tuchel or Chelsea relative to Christian Pulisic in the least. I don't think this, as I said, I don't think it was good or bad. I think it's completely something that will be ignored. But it does raise the question of if they are already thinking about the possibility of a life after Chelsea, what does that life entail? Because it's going to happen, by the way, before the World Cup. And so you're hoping that if there is going to be a change in the summer, where does Christian Pulisic go? I don't see Christian Pulisic as the type of player that's going to go slog it out in a team. I mean, he's too high quality and he's too, for lack of a better word, elite and delicate of a player. And so he has to, in my case, in my estimation, go to an elite club. And, there's very few of them out there. And so if he's going somewhere in England, you're talking about, Liverpool, Manchester City, maybe, at this point, maybe an Arsenal, maybe I guess Spurs, if you will, but it's very limited, and then it's limited when you look at the other other leagues around there. So if that move is happening, it's going to be fascinating to see ultimately where it happens. I don't know. What do you think of the tweet?
Like I said, I read into it that he's going to probably look to leave in the summer, that he's not happy. And so it was Pulisic's father lamenting, man, he likes London. He likes his teammates. It's a shame that the situation has gotten to the point where he's probably going to have to leave in the summer. But again, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But that was the tone of it.
He's going to be just fine. Don't worry about it.
As far as the top four race, Arsenal, another nice win, 2-1 away to West Ham. Tottenham beat a heavily rotated Leicester side that had one eye on the Conference League semifinals. We'll get to that in a minute. So Arsenal 2 points in front with 4 to play. The next match day, Arsenal are home to Leeds, while Tottenham are away to Liverpool. So that's a good opportunity for Arsenal to gain some separation there. But then the game afterwards is Tottenham hosting Arsenal. So it's going to be very interesting here the next 10 days or so, what becomes of this top four race. I'm excited about that. And finally, let's end on Manchester United for 1 second, because I don't know what else there is to say about this club, except the fact that they beat Brentford on Monday. So good for them. Ronaldo got another goal. But this Ralf Rangnick situation, you bring in this guy as your interim coach. He's done an objectively terrible job. They're going to finish outside the top four, but it's okay because Ralf Rangnick is more of this sporting director, big picture guy. So we're really bringing him in with an eye towards him then moving into the front office and playing this integral role in shaping the future of the club. And then we come to find out that Ralph Rangnick is going to take the Austria national team job and says almost matter-of-factly, oh, I'll still stay on as a consultant, call me when you need me type of thing with United. And he's very sort of blasé about it. We'll figure something out there. Figure something out. That was the thing. That was the whole reason you were brought into the picture, to be this like key front office guy moving forward. And now it's something you're going to squeeze in between Austrian national team games. I don't, understanding Ralph Rangnick's role moving forward has become a bit of a head scratcher for me.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Mosse, it was always framed as a temporary thing. So what you are saying is absolutely true, but why was that done in the first place? I don't understand why the powers that be felt like that was the right thing to do in the first place. You're Manchester United. Go out and get a damn coach. All right. Go out and get a manager that can come in and fix things, and can fix things quickly and fix things in the long term. And, Ralph Rangnick, they obviously believe that he, in his consulting capacity, is providing valuable information. I would love to see what that ultimately is. When it comes to that consultancy, I mean, look, we all know that consultants, they can be valuable, but a lot of times they'll just tell you things that you already know and maybe just frame it differently. And ultimately, you have to have people that are giving you information that you can act on. And like I said, the coaching of Austria, it was Austria, right?
Correct.
It doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, we discussed this recently with Roberto Martinez. There was a possibility of him being Everton and Belgium coach. You don't see the juggling the national team and club stuff as that big a deal. It doesn't bother you as much as it bothers me. No,
it doesn't bother me as much. I mean, I can see how it can be problematic at times, and you can be put in situations where there is a conflict of interest. But for the most part, no. And I know that there are international coaches that will say, "Oh, you don't understand what goes into it." I think if you're a good coach, you're a good coach, and I think you'd figure it out. And in this case, he's not even a coach; he's a consultant, and we already established that we don't know what the hell that means anyway. So this would be fine for him.
But you would agree getting Manchester United back on track is a full-time job right now. So somebody else is going to have to step into that breach.
But it was when they appointed Ralph Rangnick, though. I mean, why now it's a full-time job? Now it's important? No, it was important from the time that they made the switch.
In Spain, Real Madrid clinched their 35th La Liga title by virtue of a 4-0 win over Espanyol. Carlo Ancelotti rested Vinicius, so Rodrigo got to start on the left wing. He scored 2 beautiful first half goals. Asensio got the third, and then Vinicius and Benzema came on late, and surprise, they combined on a goal. Vinicius with the assist, Benzema with the finish. So it ends 4-0. Real Madrid are champions, and it's triggered this silly controversy in Spain. There's sort of this unwritten rule that when a team clinches the title, their next game, the opposition has to do that guard of honor, the pasillo, they call it. However, Real Madrid's next game is away to Atletico Madrid, and Atletico have already said they don't want to do it because they think it's humiliating to do that with their arch rival. And so, believe it or not, Pep Guardiola in the press conference today leading into the Real Madrid City second leg was asked if City were going to do it for tomorrow's game. And he said, what are you talking about? That's a La Liga issue. This is a Champions League game. One thing has nothing to do with the other, but everybody in Spain, I guess, has this pasillo issue on the brain. So somebody actually asked him that question. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. It's so stupid, but go ahead.
I don't think that the concept of it is stupid at all. I actually think that it should be honored, but it should be honored within your league. So yeah, it's stupid to honor it outside of the league. That doesn't make any sense at all. But who did you say they're playing next?
Away to Atletico. That's why I think if it was some random team, they'd have no issue doing it. But specifically, Atletico don't want to do it towards Real Madrid.
Well, why?
I guess there's a lot of bad blood there, and
I think suck it up, Buttercup. This is a form of honor, okay? And either you accept it or you don't. But if you do, then you have to be prepared to withstand that moment where it's ripping your insides out to give them the honor. And if you don't like it, if it hurts you and you feel it in your core, then do something about it. Be better so that you're on that other side. Yeah, I mean, I am for putting as many different things out there that are going to motivate players as possible to make the games better. And if it's if it is something that triggers, their emotion and triggers their passion and plays into their egos, like something like this, I am all for it. By the way, I love that because every time I see that, I can see the pain and the blade inside each and every one of those players as they sit there and they have to. I love it even better when you actually have to do it when you go away to play someplace and the home team has to do it for that away team. It makes me so happy to see it. And what do we call it? The corridor of honor or whatever and stuff like that. So I think it should happen in every league.
Two big milestones with this Real Madrid triumph. Carlo Ancelotti becomes the first manager to have won all the top 5 European leagues. He won Premier League with Chelsea, La Liga now with Real Madrid, Serie A with AC Milan. He won the Bundesliga with Bayern and Liga 1 with PSG. Not exactly, he didn't win any of those with like some scrappy, plucky underdog, but still give the man credit. It shows his adaptability. He's moved around. The fact that he's good enough to be hired by all these clubs, I guess, is the great lesson to be taken out of this. And he's also won 3 Champions League titles. So that man's resume is.
Well, I think you're poo-pooing it a little bit. I mean, I know we make fun of the haves and the have-nots and the ridiculous imbalance out there. But to have done it each and every place that he has gone, I think that is something special.
No, absolutely. He's not as captivating a personality as Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, even Jurgen Klopp. But very quietly here, he's put together a resume that stacks up with any manager of this generation. So, no, I'm a big Carlo Ancelotti fan for sure. And then the other milestone, Marcelo, this is his 24th trophy with Real Madrid. He becomes the most decorated player in the history of that club. I know he's always been a favorite of yours. He got a rare start here, assisted Rodrigo's first goal. So what an honor for him, huh?
Great. Congratulations to Real Madrid. And the picture of Carlo Ancelotti after with the cigar is just money.
Can I put my Brazil hat on here for 1 second?
Of course. Can you even take it off?
So I mentioned with this triumph, Marcelo becomes the most decorated player in Real Madrid history. He assisted the first goal to Rodrigo, who scored twice, and Vinicius, who's blown up into a global superstar this season, assists the last goal. And it's interesting because in Brazil, there's still this eternal debate about what is the correct path for any young player. Is it staying in Brazil a little bit longer? Is it going to Europe as early as possible? But if so, do you go straight to a super club or do you seek an intermediate step first, a Benfica, an Ajax, a Dortmund, et cetera, before going to, say, a Real Madrid or Barcelona? And it's interesting that all three of these Brazilians, Marcelo way back in January of 2007, and then now Rodrigo and Vinicius more recently, they chose this path of, after having played very little first-team football in Brazil, Marcelo was with Fluminense, Vinicius with Flamengo, and Rodrigo with Santos. They went straight to Real Madrid at the age of 18. And I must admit, in all 3 cases, I thought they were making a terrible decision. Why would a scrawny, raw, young Brazilian that still needs to develop go to a club like Real Madrid? And it's amazing how it's worked out. Marcelo ended up having this incredible career there. And it's sort of, this is his last season there. His contract is up. He's for sure going to leave. And it's sort of apropos that as he exits the stage, Vinicius and to a lesser extent Rodrigo are sort of emerging. And so it shows you that you never know. A guy chooses a path that on paper seems like the wrong way to go and it works out. And then other guys who do it smart and try to be patient and go to smaller clubs, somehow it doesn't work out for them. So when it comes to young players,
you never know. You never know. And that pathway that you're talking about, it can be influenced and redirected by just so many different things that are completely out of your control. And that's not, I don't think you're saying it, nor would I, that being smart and strategic, I think, is important, and having people in your life that can guide you. But then it's also about, making your own way and making your own luck at different times. And, we were just talking about coaches. I mean, a change of a coach can derail a plan very, very quickly. And who knows? I mean, it'd be interesting to see if you looked up how many different coaches that entails for someone like Marcelo. But to be able to change and adapt within that, and to be a constant for that team, it's a credit to how good he is, but also to his adaptability, which I think is key. We talked about that earlier on the field for any type of player. I guess it's key to any human being, maybe even more so now in the age in which we live in. All right, what else, Mosse? Should we move on?
Just very quickly, elsewhere, Barcelona beat Mallorca 2-1. Barcelona in second place, Sevilla in third. I think both those clubs are okay for the Champions League. So the real point of interest there is whether Atletico, who lost this weekend, can hold off Betis for that last Champions League spot. And then further down the table, Mallorca, who, as I mentioned, lost to Barcelona. They're involved in this relegation battle. They're level on points with Cadiz, and then Granada is 1 point behind. It's been interesting talking to Stu Holden about that. Also been interesting talking to Stu Holden to get the Mallorca perspective on the Matthew Hoppe situation. He's had a lot of interesting things to say, none of which I can mention on this podcast, but nevertheless, there's some interesting goings on there. But yeah, we'll see if Stu and Mallorca can keep themselves up. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference in terms of the money that's available and obviously the prestige. And so I live and die with him. With the Mallorca thing each and every weekend, not because I care about Mallorca, but now the only reason I care about it is because of Stu. But yeah, it's going to come down to the why. And look, he and the ownership group, they know that they are this type of club that potentially could be this yo-yo type of situation unless there was a real infusion of money that would propel them into an upper echelon type of La Liga team, that this was always going to be a difficulty. When it comes to Matthew Hoppe, it has not gone well for him, obviously, on the field in terms of his move there, and it doesn't look to be changing anytime soon. And again, it just might be, it's not that he's a bad player, it's just that it was a move that, with the current situation that they're in, with the coach that they've brought in, he's just not part of their plans. And again, it goes back to the Christian Pulisic thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player. It just means that you don't fit in. And so therefore you have to find a place where you do fit in. And for Matthew Hoppe, that might be a return to the US, or it might be someplace else in Europe, because he's young enough. And I do believe that there is a recognition of his value that he will have offers.
Serie A, that title race rolls on. Milan beat Fiorentina 1-0 on a goal by Rafael Leão, and then Inter responded with a 2-1 away win over Udinese. So Milan are 2 points up with 3 rounds to play. Keep in mind, the tiebreaker in Italy is head-to-head, and Milan have it. So they're in the driver's seat here. They have it in their hands. We'll see if they can finish the deal here, with Inter looking to overtake them. And then we'll end with a couple of leagues where the title's already been decided. First, the Bundesliga. We know Bayern have already clinched. Interestingly enough, Bayern and Dortmund both lost this weekend. Bayern lost to Mainz and Dortmund fell to Bochum. Some transfer news, though. Dortmund have signed a very good young defender, Schlotterbeck from Freiburg, a player who Bayern wanted. And Dortmund have already also signed Niklas Süle from Bayern for next season. So they're going to lose Haaland, but they are strengthening at the back. So we'll see if what that means moving forward. Some developments in the top 4 race. Leipzig, who had surged up to 3rd, have now lost 2 in a row. They've dropped back to 5th. They're 1 point behind Freiburg for 4th. Keep in mind, they're also in the Europa League, which we'll talk about in a minute. So Leipzig have 2 cracks at it, but still, they thought they were going to get this done through the league, and then the Europa League would be more about winning a European trophy. And Freiburg and Leipzig are fighting for 4th, and those 2 are set to square off in the German Cup final. Leverkusen, who are 3rd, last weekend of the season, they host Freiburg, and they're involved in this race as well. So it's very interesting, the end of the season here in Germany as far as Champions League berths. Now, we know Bayern Munich clinching the title recently led to the Bundesliga taking a propaganda lambasting. And Derek Ray, who has anointed himself Mr. Bundesliga, has been on fire on Twitter lately with an occasional assist from Eric Winalda, pointing out everything that's great about the Bundesliga, the fan culture. There's so many storylines. There's lots of drama elsewhere on the table. Why can't people see this? How wonderful this league is. And you chimed in, responded to one of his tweets I saw. What was your take on this whole Derek Ray Bundesliga thing?
Well, he was talking about how he had been at a gathering with his friends, and his friends had said that, and look, there is nobody that you will find that is a bigger supporter of the Bundesliga than the Derek Ray. And obviously he works it, but I think he just has a lifelong appreciation, love, and respect for it. And so he's a champion for it. But when he was talking to his friends, they were saying, and they're all EPL fans, they were saying that the narrative for the EPL is so much better than the Bundesliga, and that's why they follow it. And his point to them was that there are plenty of wonderful stories. And look, having covered the Bundesliga, I know them. We talked about them. But my point to him was that it's not their responsibility to unearth these stories about a league. They are the marketplace. They are the consumer. They are the customer. And in this age of selling your brand and selling your league globally and all of the competition, you have to be able to sell a product. And in this case, we're talking about sports. There's a lot of narratives. You have to be able to sell those and appeal to people out there and give it to them. They're not going to work for it. And so my point, I guess, to him was it should come as no surprise that his friends believe this and are attracted to that. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the EPL, nobody has done it better about churning those narratives and selling it, not just to an EPL fan base that exists, but to the world, and becoming globally relevant because of their continual churning of these stories that resonate with so many people out there. That's not to say that the Bundesliga doesn't have those stories, but the Bundesliga, and they are a little behind the eight ball as others are because of the English language and how much more of the world that opens up to you. But the Bundesliga, and I'm not telling them or anybody there anything that they don't know. They have to find a way to cut through. They have to find a way to sell their story and all of those stories that Derek would point to. And it's not that his friends or anybody else have to go and find those stories. The English stories, the EPL stories, they come to you and they find their way to you. And when they do, they resonate. Now, the first order of business is to actually get to the people. The next order of business is when you get to them to provide them something in terms of that storytelling that resonates and creates new fans, so that they would have this, I guess, what Derek would look like as a very provincial type of attitude and view of the soccer world should come as no surprise to him or anybody else. I think if he was here, he would say that his point was that they are blanketing the world of soccer, but they are only looking at it from a viewpoint of the EPL, which I guess is a valid argument and point to him. And my point simply was the marketplace is out there. It's a global marketplace, and nobody out there has done it better in terms of giving people the entertainment and the storylines that they want to hear and that they are attracted to than the EPL. And if the Bundesliga ever wants to compete and not be looked at as a redheaded stepchild or something lesser relative to the almighty EPL, they got to find a way to cut through and give people a reason to care about all of those stories that Derek would reference.
I wasn't sure where I was going to work this in, but I mentioned Erling Haaland is going to leave Dortmund, and Haaland was his most prominent client right now, so I'll mention it here. Mino Raiola passed away, the super agent, at the age of 54. It was a bit of a weird few days there because some reporters jumped the gun on reporting his death before he was actually dead, but he was very ill. It was imminent, and then he did in fact pass away a day or two later. So obviously sad news there. We've talked about him on this podcast. I did a Mosse Makes the Case about him a couple of years ago. Undeniably one of the most important figures in European football in recent years. I know, like
he made a lot of money for himself. He made even more for his clients, but he also fundamentally changed the way that the business, the agenting business kind of works, and his ability to leverage all of the star power that he had to get better deals for the individuals that he represented and his clients, and his negotiating strategy and all of that. And I think that there was an overwhelming appreciation, respect, and maybe even a a fear, if you will, and he represented, some of the great players out there, and he used, the incredible amount of money that is in our game, but he also recognized the value and the leverage that star power brought to the individual player, but also to his staple of players going on out there. So, I mean, he made a mark. So it's sad, obviously, for his family and for the game, and certainly for all of his friends and clients out there.
And Real Madrid did a moment of silence for Freddie Rincon, which I thought was a classy move. He played briefly for them, and so nice. Yeah, that was nice. Liga, PSG have already clinched the title, but they can add one more disappointing result to their collection this season. They were up 3-1 on Strasbourg and surrendered 2 goals late. It ended 3-3. Mbappe scored twice in this game. The point of interest with PSG now is I'm wondering when Mbappe is going to announce his move to Real Madrid. He's trying to find some way to finesse it where he can still leave PSG on good terms. I'm not sure how he's going to pull that off, but nevertheless, everybody knows he's going to Real Madrid, and he's going to try to pick some appropriate time here at some time in the next few weeks and figure out how he's going to.
Yeah, there's no finessing it. I mean, you just got to rip that Band-Aid.
He needs to do a ESPN special called The Decision.
Yes, taking my talents to Madrid.
And then to whip through some of the midweek European stuff, Conference League, Roma will host Leicester in the second leg of the semifinal. It was 1-1 in England. And then Marseille host Feyenoord in the other semifinal second leg. They're trying to overturn a 3-2 deficit. Europa League, West Ham now in trouble. They lost 2-1 at home to Frankfurt, so they have to go to Germany and try to overturn that result. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and Luis Aguilar liked this point so much, he stuck it in the rundown again. That has Premier League title race implications. If West Ham were to get to the Europa League final, that final would be 3 days after their home game against Manchester City. I would suspect they would rest everybody for that City game. So that would be a bad break for Liverpool, because that's the game that a lot of Liverpool fans have circled in the calendar as the likeliest for City to drop points. So keep an eye on that. And then the other semifinal, Leipzig go to Scotland looking to protect a 1-0 lead over Rangers. So, like I said, the Bundesliga has taken a bit of a hit here because Bayern won the league again, but they could have 2 teams in the Europa League final. So that would be nice in the midst of all this Premier League domination and La Liga in Europe, if you could have an all-German final in one of the 3 competitions. So we'll keep.
Doesn't it just kind of highlight your second level niche?
Well, particularly in Leipzig's case, they were in the Champions League and dropped down. So that's always like, they both count as a knock on the Bundesliga this season because they got eliminated in the group stage of the Champions League. Although, to be fair, they were in a very difficult group with City and PSG. But then it's also a feather in their cap if they get to the Europa League final. So it kind of cuts both ways with Leipzig. And then, by the way, we also have the Champions League semis, second legs this week. We're taping this Tuesday morning, folks. Villarreal hosts Liverpool later today. By the time you hear this podcast, that game will be done, so we don't have to spend much time on it. But we both think Liverpool all the way, right? They have a 2-0 aggregate lead, and they'll finish the job, which would be their 3rd Champions League final appearance in 5 seasons. And then the big one is tomorrow, Real Madrid hosting City, trying to overturn a 4-3 deficit after that wild first leg at the Etihad. Looks like City could be in good shape as far as their fullbacks. Cancelo missed the first leg due to suspension. He's back. And Kyle Walker missed the first leg through injury. He looks like will be available. For Real Madrid, David Alaba looks to be out, so Nacho will start in the center of the defense. There's some question about whether Rodrigo or Valverde will start on the right. So, but all setting up for an incredible second leg between these teams. Huh?
And I think you mentioned it earlier. A lot of the Real Madrid players were rested over the weekend. I think Modric started. So, I mean, very few of who we think are going to start this game. And it's already been a nutty matchup in that first game. We'll see if the nuttiness continues on. I mean, like I said, my heart wants Man City, Liverpool in that final. And on the one side, I think we're going to get Liverpool. I'm still not. I mean, with this Real Madrid team, it's so unpredictable. Yeah. Who do you got, Mosse?
I know Real Madrid have had this. I don't know. It's tough.
It is hard, huh? It's so hard.
I going into the tie, I picked Real Madrid, and you'd think, given the way things are now, it sets up for another dramatic second leg advancement for them. But I don't know. For some reason, the last couple of days, I've sort of started to feel like City's going to go through. I don't know.
And the away goals don't count. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to go Man City.
All right.
I'm going to go all EPL fine.
Last thing, and Luis Aguilar not including this in the rundown is a disgrace. We talked about it last week, so we got to advance the story. The women's UEFA Champions League, Barcelona lost to Wolfsburg 2-0 the second leg, their first defeat in forever, but they had won the first leg 5-1, so they go through with that result. And then Lyon, which boasts Catarina Macario and Lindsay Horan, they beat PSG 2-1 to complete a 5-3 aggregate triumph. So the final is set. It's a dream final. Barcelona-Lyon, May 21st in Turin. It's a rematch of the 2019 final that Lyon won 4-1. That was the fourth of what would be 5 straight Champions League titles for them. Remember, not too long ago, they were the team that the New York Times was doing features about, and this is the 8th wonder of the world. And it's interesting that Barcelona have emerged now. They won the Champions League last season, beating Chelsea 4-0, and now they meet Lyon in this final. Barcelona win, I think, would really stamp the fact that there has been a changing of the guard here, and Barcelona is now the top European women's team. So it should be great.
And the crowds. I mean, the crowds,
yeah.
They just lead into the whole aura of this is a great team on the field, and this is something big that is happening when it comes to not just the Barcelona women's team, but women's soccer in Spain and beyond. All right. Anything else?
That is it.
All right. We'll take another quick break. When we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi. Don't go anywhere. Okay. We are back. It's time for Ask Alexi. I think we got some Twitter questions here, right, Mosse?
Yeah, the first one requires a little bit of context.
Okay.
The Portland Timbers and the Portland Thorns played a Coed charity match for a very good cause. They raised money for this Ukrainian relief fund. So kudos to everybody involved in that. But, your brain never stops. And so you were quite taken by this event, so much so that you went on something of a Twitter whole rant there about, I don't want to say rant because it wasn't anything aggressive, but just talking about the future of Coed soccer, and it caught one guy's attention. So our first Twitter question is from Crazy Horse. He asks, why do you think Coed is part of the future? Would love to hear your rationale. Appreciate any insight you can provide. Sincerely, a Michigander who grew up a few years behind you. Thanks.
Nice. All right. Well, shout out to Michigan. So first off, it wasn't even necessarily relative to the Portland situation. I think I even talked about this on a previous pod last year or something like that. But I've always been intrigued by the thought of what Coed soccer could be. And I'm not talking about, look, I played Coed soccer with my wife. There's plenty of people listening and watching right now that have played Coed soccer, and and it's fun and all. I'm talking about what would amount to be professional Coed soccer. And therefore the stakes would be raised. And I was always fascinated with how, because let's say, for example, the rules were you had to have 6 women and 5 men on the field at all times. Well, then you have to decide, where are you going to play men and women? And are you going to play a woman in goal? Are you going to play a man in goal? What are you going to give up by playing a man or woman in this part of the field as opposed to this part of the field? And so I've always thought about that. So, I was talking about the future of soccer. And so for a couple of reasons why I think this possibly could happen. One, we are living at a time where I think, gender is being defined and or redefined as we speak. And not just the acceptance, but the desire for the melding of the two sexes on a continual basis is out there. I think even from a business and entertainment perspective. Now, inevitably, when you start talking about this, and this was like, immediately after I tweeted this, I started getting the people talking about, the reality and the disparity when it comes to men's and women's soccer, if and when they ever play against each other. That's not what we're talking about here. Okay. So you can bring up all of the examples of the 15-year-old boys beating the women's national team or whatever it ends up being. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about if you had, from a national team perspective, had to take the best 6 U.S. women's national team players and meld them with the best 5 men's national team players, what would that team ultimately look like on the field? And how would it become successful against other teams. And as we continue on, and this goes back to the business of why I think that the future, and I didn't say that a men's national team and a women's national team or men's professional soccer or women's professional soccer was going anywhere. I just think you start adding this to your palette of competitions out there, that it is still the game of soccer. It might be played strategically differently than your traditional men's or women's game, but it provides an opportunity for more games, more tournaments, more leagues, and it provides an opportunity for more people in the future that I think are going to be much more amiable to it to come together in that moment. And keep in mind that it's not men versus women. And so it's all relative to the two teams that you have that are mixed. And so that strategy, I think, would probably evolve over time. And when you involve money, if you're talking about a professional situation here, I think it starts to change. It's not about charity. It's not about nobody getting hurt and just having a good time. This is about results. And you would pick and choose your men and women in terms of putting them in specific spots that are going to give you success, either by being better than what you feel they're going to come up against, be it a man or a woman, or negate who you feel they are going to be coming up against. So, the world is changing. The world is evolving, as is the sport. And as I said, men's soccer and women's soccer is not going anywhere. But, with the advent of all of our extended national teams, you look at our Paralympic team, which, by the way, is in the midst of the World Cup. And I should mention tied Iran 1-1 in their first game over there in the World Cup over in Spain. Our women's Paralympic team starts up in a couple of weeks here in their World Cup experience. Our beach soccer team, our futsal team, our deaf team, which is coming, all of these different teams. If you put on an exciting and entertaining type of product on the field, and in this case where it's men and women, I think you might have something there. And that's why I was talking about that. A lot of people said no, this would never happen. But I just see the way that our world is changing, the way that our society is evolving, and this might be an interesting way going forward, not to replace necessarily, but to augment the calendar and the menu, if you will, of soccer that is being given to the masses out there. Anyway, what else we got, Mosse?
At Raul Villa asks, what do you think about Cade Cowell? What he's alluding to there is Cade Cowell and his younger brother, Chance, who's 13. So let's really make this more about Cade. Who knows what Chance is going to become. Is working on obtaining Mexican citizenship, which would give him the option to play for Mexico. Mm-hmm. We've known this was a possibility for a while. In interviews, he's said he's not sure, whichever country wants him more, or whichever country he thinks he's a better fit. He has played various youth levels for the U.S., and he played in a senior match, a game we covered, a friendly against Bosnia and Herzegovina in December of last year. We're talking, of course, about San Jose forward Cade Cowell. So what do you think?
I mean, look, if he or his brother feel that this is what they want to do, and for whatever reason they give, it could be this is just the best possible chance that they have of playing for a national team. And in that capacity, it would be much more mercenary, or they really feel that this is something that speaks to them and touches them. And there is a pride relative to representing Mexico that I wish them all the luck in the world. And I want to see that happen for them. I honestly, when it comes to the national team, I know we live in a day and age where recruitment is a reality of the national team. And the more and more dual nationals that we have, or potential dual nationals that we have out there, the more and more the selling of the team and the recruitment process is going to be important. But I don't get worked up about, quote unquote, losing a player. And it's not that you shouldn't make an effort, but I do want players, even young players, to meet you halfway, So I do know that I do recognize that there is a recruiting process here. And I've said time and time again, I don't want anybody on the U.S. men's national team or U.S. women's national team or any of our national teams to be there in a mercenary capacity, because I think that is not sustainable. I think that it will manifest at a certain point in your representation, and usually at the worst possible point. I think the national team is such a unique experience, and I think you have to feel something. You have to feel something that supersedes, the money and the fame and the opportunity. You have to feel something, as I've said time and time again, when you put your hand over your heart and you stand there in that shirt and you sing for your country. That has to be the overwhelming influence in terms of what you're doing. I know it's not. Look, I'm not naive. I understand that it's not always that case. And again, just to reiterate, there are plenty of dual and triple nationals out there that I get it. It's hard. And it doesn't mean that if you pick one over the other that you don't have affinity and a connection and a love and a pride for the team that you, quote unquote, didn't pick out there. But I just don't get hung up or worried if and when we lose talent to another national team. I do if we didn't at least make an effort. But again, I want it to come from both sides. In the same way that I wouldn't want our national team making a genuine effort for a player that we didn't feel was of our level. I think that would be detrimental, and I think that would be mean-spirited and a horrible thing to do and unfair to that player. Just to kind of cover and control that type of player, so that not necessarily so that he'll play for us, but so that he doesn't play for somebody else. So good luck to both the Cowells. And who knows, this might just be a part of their pathway and they might end up playing for the U.S.
A few things here. First off, Greg Berhalter is on record as saying when the U.S. is fighting for a player with another country, he prefers for the player to spend time with that other country and their setup, and so he can make an informed decision. He doesn't like the idea of cap tying a guy to sort of, hold him hostage before he's had a chance to experience what the other country can offer. So I think it's an interesting way that Greg Berhalter approaches that. It's interesting too, the reaction from U.S. fans, because you go back to the Jonathan Gonzalez situation, and that was in the aftermath of the U.S. not qualifying for the World Cup. And so the freak out sessions there. And now U.S. fans are much more confident, downright cocky about the U.S.'s ability to pump out players. So the reaction on Twitter I've seen is, hey, Mexico, if you need him, take him, because we can produce Cade Cowell level players without a problem now. So, we have good young players to spare, so that there seems to be this sort of confidence on the U.S. side that no one player is that significant in the grand scheme of things because of how the U.S. has gotten their sort of talent development flowing.
But also we understand that talent development is not an exact science. And so even before all of the talk of dual nationals, we recognize that things can happen. And your assessment of a player at this age could be very, very different than 5 or 10 years later. And so to hold people accountable because they didn't predict that this player would end up being that's insanity. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, and the last thing, Mexico, they're clearly looking for a spark because they played a friendly last week. It was actually the same night as the first leg of the CCL final. They played a friendly against Guatemala and Orlando, and they called up this 18-year-old Marcelo Flores, who's a guy that they're fighting with Canada for. And he's on the books at Arsenal. He plays for their under-23 team. And it wasn't just, hey, some young player, let's call him up, give him a shot in this friendly. There was like a lot of anticipation surrounding his appearance in this friendly. So you could tell they know they need a spark, and they're looking for some unexpected young player to emerge in the 6 months before this World Cup. And it was interesting with Flores. He gave an interview and he said, well, if Mexico call me up to the World Cup, then I'll probably go with Mexico. But if not, then I'm not so sure. And Tata Martino was a bit taken aback by that and said, you got to make a decision here, but like, it can't be sort of like, you need this World Cup selection as sort of a carrot at the end of this. Tata didn't love that Flores framed it that way. So yeah, it shows you how weird these dual citizenship situations can become sometimes with players.
I don't know how weird it is. I respect Tata for saying that. I think that he understands kind of like what we were talking about what a national team is. And look, if you don't believe that that's what a national team is, or you don't believe that national teams should be that, then fine. The conversation is done. I feel that in that capacity, you are representing your country, and it's something that's bigger than you. And it's something that should be important to you and should, like I said, supersede all the scores and the wins and all the other stuff that comes along with it. Ultimately, you have to, I think, be happy and proud of what you are representing in that moment. All right. Anything else, Mosse?
Last question, at J Alex asks, Netflix's Formula One documentary has inspired thousands of new fans and generated significant buzz. Why doesn't MLS take the same approach? People thought FS1 was boring until they learned the stories. Same could be true for soccer.
Yeah, I mean, so this is something that is often talked about, and rightfully so, because of the success, and not just the FS1 or the F1 model out there. I mean, the behind the scenes hard knocks, whatever you want to call it, it's a tried and true and tested type of formula to create interest. You need buy-in. And if it were MLS, you would need buy-in from lots of people. I think there is a reticence when it comes to teams and sports teams of providing too much of a peek behind the curtain. And, everybody, whether it's player or coaches or anybody else, recognizes that everything's in the edit, right? And you can make stories and characters go this way and that way through the edit. And so I think that there are plenty of players that either have been burned before, or organizations that would be wary of something like that in terms of how it ultimately came out. And you might do it yourself. And there's a lot of teams out there when it comes to MLS that crank out a lot of behind the scenes type of content to try to tell those stories. Certainly not at the level of what the Netflix documentary does and has done for the sport. So yes, I would love to see that. I also think that you've touched upon something that unfortunately, maybe not necessarily in sports, but certainly when I look at American soccer and when I look at Major League Soccer, I think we've done a piss poor job of cultivating a generation that recognizes not only their responsibility, but maybe more so the opportunity of being, of exposing their personality and being comfortable and being encouraged to be yourself, and not in essence being, shamed and having it curtailed in what you expose for the public. Even if you're just looking at it from a pure individual standpoint, this whole generation knows about branding and knows about individual brands. Well, part of that is selling yourself. And I don't think we do a good enough job of, at an early age, explaining to players that there is this opportunity. And if they take advantage of it, there can be wonderful things that come out. And it doesn't mean that you can't have privacy. It doesn't mean that you can't have a life and a persona away from the game, but you are in the entertainment business. Whether you're walking out there on the field or whether you're walking around a locker room and performing for a camera, you are performing. And it's not a pejorative. It's a good thing. But I do think that it needs to be not only encouraged and nurtured, but it needs to be taught. It needs to be worked on, as any type of skill or art form out there is. And players have to recognize what it can do, and leagues have to recognize what it can do. So to your question, Jay, Alex, I think the coordination would have to be there. The buy-in has to be there, whether it's from a league perspective or a team perspective. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see those types of things. And, you know, we've seen them with other teams. And there probably is also a thought process that goes in where, how much is it going to change? How much is it going to matter? Are we going to be better off ultimately for having done this? You know, the F1 documentary right now, yes, it's created a lot of other fans, but I've been reading articles where, you know, the leadership and the higher ups, they're not necessarily, while they like customers and adding to their, to their viewership and all that, they're not necessarily pleased at the way they or their sport is always being portrayed. Well, you take the good with the bad. And certainly if a behind the scenes effort and documentary that documented either MLS as a whole or documented a certain team, I think that it would help not just the team and the league, but would ultimately help the sport. But again, it's all in the edit. So you got to have good people working that understand how to tell stories, that understand how to edit, understand how to find and to encourage those personalities and bring them out. And it can play havoc with the dynamic within that locker room when things start to change off the field with how players are perceived or how teams are perceived or how coaches are perceived, as opposed to simply looking at that 90 minutes that happens and you win or you lost and everything emanates from there. So anyway, that's a long, I don't even know if it's an explanation. It was just off the top of my head about how that could possibly happen or why it doesn't happen. But I'd like to see it happen because I'm always fascinated and interested by all of those different behind the scene things that we have. And I know we've talked about a bunch of them, Mosse, over the years that we have watched. And I think if there's one out there, we watch it, right? Just because of the soccer people that we are.
Yeah. I mean, ESPN did that one on LAFC and I enjoyed that. It was very good. That's it.
That's it. All right. Listen, thank you for all our Ask Alexi questions out there. Use that hashtag Alexi, or you can call us on our State of the Union podcast hotline at 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. All right. We've come to the end of the show here. So we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, it's my one for the road. Don't go anywhere. All right. We're back. We've come to the end of the show. My one for the road is, Mosse, did you know it's Mother's Day this weekend?
Yep.
You did. You got something cooking and going for your mother? Don't, make sure you get on that, right?
Working on it.
Well, listen, I think I've talked about this in the past, and I have, believe it or not, I have a mother. I love her dearly, and I love everything that she gave me in terms of my upbringing, whether it was to do with soccer or not. But when it comes to the soccer moms out there, sometimes we use that term and it has become such a part of our society and culture. We use it in politics and everything else out there. But there are wonderful women out there who are soccer moms, and my hat's off to each and every one of them for everything that they do to help our sport in the time and effort and resource and support that they give to all of those players that are out there playing. And, the soccer mom has changed over the years. And we are certainly at a point right now where many soccer moms out there are soccer players. Either they have grown up playing, they have continued playing. They've grown up watching the game. They know a tremendous amount about the game. And yes, there's still soccer moms that come to the game without a whole lot of knowledge, but they are soccer through and through. And whether it's supporting their kids and driving their kids and paying for their kids and doing all of those different things, or taking them to a Angel City game, or taking them to a LA Galaxy game, or insert your professional team, or a Detroit City FC game, or whatever it ends up being. Soccer is part of their life because it is part of your life. And in the same way that my mom was a soccer mom of the 70s and 80s. But that's not to say that she's not still a soccer mom. I think once a soccer mom, always a soccer mom. And I think soccer moms in general appreciate what the game brings to not just their kids, but to their family and to their community, and to all of the soccer moms out there. And let's be honest, just all the moms out there. I want to say happy Mother's Day this weekend. And thank you. Thank you for all that you do, like I said, for our game. And I know that especially when you're younger, you can be a little shit sometimes. And you can tend to ignore or not be as respectful as one would want of all of the things. And we all know that moms in general, they grin and bear it. But if you have the opportunity, however old or young you are, make sure that you recognize them, thank them each and every day. But certainly we have this weekend coming up. And if you have soccer mothers in your life, don't take them for granted, and recognize that they will always be soccer moms to you. Even when you are old and gray and no longer kicking a ball, they will still be your mom, and they will still be your soccer mom. And be thankful that you have them and have had them supporting you on and off the field, because I guarantee at times you weren't as lovable and grateful as you should have been. So here's an opportunity this week for you to spend some time and thank and celebrate all of the soccer moms out there. Anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
All right. We will be back again next week at our regularly scheduled time. Again, apologies for the 24-hour delay. If it has thrown your week and your routine into disarray, it could not have. It just couldn't be helped. It's just the way that the world works. Well, we will be back recording on Monday, and the episode out on Tuesday next week. Remember, download, review, rate, do all the different things that you do out there. Send us your questions, your AskAlexi questions out there. Send us your telephone questions if you want on the State of the Union podcast hotline. That's 657-549-2297, 657-549-2297. We will see you right back here on the State of the Union podcast. And until then, and as always, size the day.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.